Welcome all. Welcome back. Today is Tuesday, December 9, 2025, and the second show since we've returned online streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, etc., and then to be recorded and put out, on the various platforms. So, want to go back just briefly, just to kind of touch on that first show we did last week and what's coming going forward. We will do Tuesday and Thursday, and go forward there consistently with the Tuesday-Thursday show, roughly at around 6:30 for those of you watching. And I know some of you say you're a little late, and I said I am. We got here 30 minutes early to be 10 minutes late. How about that? Anyway, so we're up. So I'm running around this time of around 6:30 or 7, and I want to keep the show at or about 30 to 45, no more than that. If we're going past that, definitely not more than an hour, depending on the topic or the news of the day, and items that are heavy in content that we need to kind of address. In addition, to what we do normally in our social media, Facebook group, and then other content. But for the most part, I want to keep SuperMex Nation, this show, to discussion and question and answer a little bit. And we're going to flesh that format out a little bit more as we go forward and we get settled into like a consistent schedule of shows. And then because I keep going back to this more and more over the last handful of years that we were off air or not doing a show, I kept getting questions about, well, what about this? What about that? And I always wanted to kind of make that not necessarily a question and answer show, but I wanted to make it a place where someone that genuinely needs an answer or some clarification, or maybe doesn't know something and needs somebody to parse through the morass and the fog of people taking a rule, an item, a law, an issue, and skewing it 50 ways because someone's too left, too far right, or they've got their own personal interest and they're smart enough to make you think that what they think is right or what they believe is right, and you have trouble. And that's most of America, by the way. Most of America believes certain things just because they're told to. Very few people are going to deny that, left or right. That's a fact. So I will get to that eventually. We still want to be able to have guests come on the show in addition to me as a host and talk about important items having to do with what I specified last week, which is Mexican cultural, social, political issues and items of the day and the past. And then also, as we're going to flesh out here in a little bit, my personal background in the United States military, United States Army in particular, and what we see going on today, and being able to filter that out. Because I will say this, I see a lot of content or talk from military personnel that is almost uniformly, pun intended there with the word, that is almost uniformly upper brass, officers and high-ranking personnel. And listen, for good reason. Those men and women have earned over a lifetime's worth of work that knowledge, that expertise. Segue into what we're coming in a little bit, and they deserve to be heard. However, my point is, there aren't a lot of regular rank and file enlisted personnel that do content, that do talk about military issues. And this is what I'll add. The overwhelming majority, the only overwhelming percentage of military people, meaning people in uniform serving our country, are almost all enlisted personnel. That's the vast majority. Don't get me wrong, there's an officer contingent, there's enlisted and there's officer, meaning you went to a 4-year school, you earned a commission, etc., and you have an officer's commission and rank. But the overwhelming percentage of people that serve in our nation's military in all branches are not officers. They're regular people that don't do 20 years. They do 2 or 3, or they do 5 or 10. Some do 20, and you can become a command sergeant major in the Army or other things, right? But my point is that ultimately the largest number of people in uniform at any time, and beyond their time in uniform as veterans, having been prior service members, are enlisted people, regular people. And I qualify as that. Now, I do have a degree, but I earned that after I left the military, instead of getting a degree before I entered the military and going the officer. And I did have my opportunity to be an officer. I chose not to. My choice. My point, though, again, is that I'm a regular guy that way. I did a little over 3 years, 3.25, and that's the overwhelming percentage of people that actually serve. So that perspective is needed too. Not just like my old general, General Russell Honoré. I see him once in a while on television shows. Still have a lot of love for him. He probably doesn't know who I am, but I was his Soldier of the Year at one point in 1990. Great honorable man. He's on a lot of different talk shows and a lot of different networks speaking about military matters from his perspective. I absolutely believe, and I think most of you that watch this show will understand and believe it also, we do need that other perspective. We need the perspective of a 18-year-old kid who signs his name on a piece of paper and he goes and serves his country for 3.5, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, etc. We need that perspective too. And that is what I'm offering here. Obviously with Lucid, an intelligent conversation and explanation from my perspective of what I see as a former enlisted man, not as an officer, just as one of the rank and file in the trenches. That perspective is needed. So gone on plenty there. That's a little bit of background. Again, we're back on for only our second show in a long, long time. So for people that are new or that will watch this for the first time, and maybe even for people that are returning after a long layoff for me, that's a little bit of my background too, to give you some perspective. I offer those two things that I will speak to expertly, debatable obviously, but with some authority because that's my background. Mexican in America, Mexican American, and in this case, what we're speaking now, military. So without any further ado, let's get right into, I want to do 2 items, 2 topics, and I want to keep those 2 items, 2 topics, like I said, under an hour in the roughly 30 to 45 minute range. So boom, 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 like a good teacher. Again, part of my background, former U.S. history teacher, AP European history teacher, academic decathlon teacher. I want to do 2 tangible, identifiable, comprehensible, understandable items that you walk away or finish up this show with when I'm done and you click off and you go to something else, or you turn off the TV or your device. You will remember these 2 things when we're done. And that is good teaching. Learning something about a particular item where you're given facts and you're given information that you will retain. Teaching is nothing if the student or the people out there don't retain the information and learn. You're not teaching. Then you're just doing what a good chunk of people that I see in social media online, just spitting out stuff. Not always facts either, by the way. Okay? It's retention of information. It's about learning. Not just regurging and not just reposting and not seeing who can get a quick like and a share and a subscribe or whatever. But do you learn something? And for the record, if I get no likes, subscribes, or shares, I don't give a damn. What I care about is that you actually walk away and you know something more and better than what you did prior to you being here. That was the whole point to me teaching in the first place. I didn't give a damn who liked and shared or did what I did in the classroom. I cared that my students walked out and they knew more than when they walked in. That is day to day and at the end of a calendar school year, after X amount of months where they're in my classroom and they walk out and they actually know some stuff, right? That's the point to what we're doing here. So 2 items. We'll begin with a follow-up to last week's show, and what is an item today, and it's all beginning to morph and congeal into one. Like for me anyway, as a former military person prior service, it's starting to all be the same thing to me. And that's our military as a whole, and the weakening of that military. And the second item will be further analysis or dip into Mexican-American cultural uniformity and its disunity. All at once, okay? Because they work hand in hand. You can be uniform and work together, or you can be disunited and not work together at all and actively work against each other. And if you're Mexican in America, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll get to that. That'll be at the back end of the show. We'll touch that a little bit, flesh it out a little bit so that, again, you can't solve problems unless you identify them and you're honest with them about what you see. And you don't care what someone's going to say or take an attack and a shot at you because you're spitting the truth and they just don't like it because they're part of that problem. So those two items in particular, again, weakening of the United States military, one, to commence shortly, and two, Mexican-American cultural uniformity and disunity. And I'll stay away from the political or the social because it does bleed into the social anyway, okay? Mexican-American cultural uniformity and disunity. All right, so let's begin. So we talked specifically about the boat strikes ordered by our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And I talked to you specifically and shared with you about law of land warfare, rules of engagement, what it means to violate or to understand what the UCMJ is, Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is the governing law, code, regulation that governs all uniformed military personnel. Okay, all of us. Anyone in uniform in any of the branches in service. There's one law. And it is different than what you get as a civilian. It's far harsher, by the way. It's far harsher than what you're going to see as a regular civilian in the regular world. And it should be. And it should be harsher because of what you are, who you are, how you're trained, and what you have access to. It should be more restrictive, more regulating, and more harsh in penalty. It should be, okay? And that's me saying it as a former service member, okay? Because I know what the consequences are if there is lawlessness in serving. I know what that means. It's not good. It's bad, like really bad. It'll debilitate and cripple a force in a short amount of time. So that's where we'll pick up and begin. So I said last week that as we find out more information about what the strikes were, if it was a double tap, meaning the boat in particular that everybody's talking about was struck, and the 11 members, the alleged narco-terrorists that were on that boat, 11 of them, if they're attacked, assaulted, hit with a weapon, a missile of some kind, and eradicated, 2 were clearly survivors, and that's basically the crux of the issue. 2 of them survived the initial strike, and I said to you, and I quoted, that if they were struck and they are assaulted, not killed, unarmed, and defenseless, coming out of the water, and there is specific citation in manuals and codes that describes what is a prisoner of war and what can you not do in assaulting or attacking enemy combatants. Okay, and I'm going to reiterate this. The minute they were struck and attempting to survive with no weapons in their hands, and you got to, and I'm going to say this because some of you are going to ask this question, like, they're on a boat getting hit from the eye in the sky from who knows how far away. Who the hell are they going to hit? Nobody. It's a redundant question because it's so blatantly obvious it's not even worth mentioning, but I'm going to mention it because some of you will need to hear it. Okay? They're not attacking anybody. They're running around on a boat. Again, they're alleged. I'm not saying they're not narco-terrorists. I'm not saying they weren't moving cocaine. That's not the point. If they are, then they're drug dealers or they're drug movers, drug traffickers. Okay? However, drug trafficker, the devil himself, quote this, the devil himself, if we hit him and he gets blasted in the water and he's trying to crawl out of the damn water onto a boat and he's unarmed and defenseless, then he is now a POW. And we are obligated by rules of war, by rules of combat, to take him as a prisoner of war and to no longer disseminate lethal force and attack that person. They become prisoners of war. And I said last week, they are non-combatant. C-O-M-B-A-T-A-N-T. They can no longer fight. If they were ever able to fight in the first place, by the way. They cannot fight. So if they cannot fight and they're non-combatant, and we strike them and they're unarmed and helpless, then that is a violation of war. Okay? So I'm going to stop there. That's definable and understandable. As I said and as I've stated, and when they finally, because it will happen, you can trust me on this, they're hiding the second recording of the incident because I know it's going to look bad. Why would they hide it, right? Why did Congress disappear for X amount of months so they can redact Trump's name from the Epstein files? We know there's a purpose and a reason. If you don't believe that, you're stupid. I'll just say it. Or you're so far up Trump's butt that it's impossible for you to know. Okay? So if we know that they were struck after the first strike, and they were unarmed and helpless coming out of the water, they are non-combatant. And that means it is a violation of war, a violation of rules of engagement in combat for us to strike and to kill them, to finish them. Okay? This isn't a damn video game. Let's be clear about it. Some of you may think it, some of you badasses out there that think you're chingon, think that you know what the hell you're talking about. You don't. Because you don't attack someone that's unarmed and helpless. I don't give a shit who they are. I don't give a damn who they are. It is against our code. It is against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's against Geneva Convention Code. It is by nature beyond dishonorable. Some of you don't even know what the hell word dishonorable and honorable is anymore. And definitely not this president and Pete Hegseth. They don't know what honor is. But some of us still believe in that. Some of us still abide by that. The minute that all of us stop abiding by that, then we're a nut house, chaos-infused, whack job, shit show of a people that let's just, might makes right, whoever can kill somebody else, let's just do it. That's where this leads. If the military, if our United States military does not have rules, and this thing's done, this thing's over, let alone with our friends and allies, because they're seeing it. Okay, so that was last week. And I'm going to follow that up with what I saw, or what we're seeing over time, over a period of time this week. And then I'm going to move on to the second, because like I said, I don't want to, there's plenty to talk to here, but I'm giving you straight facts, straight honest assessment. Okay, no games. This is not partisan. This is not a left or right issue. It is a right and wrong issue. And if you identify that as left or right, it's probably because you're wrong. Let me restate that. This is not a left or right issue. This is not a liberal or conservative issue. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is a right and wrong issue. And if you don't understand that, you're part of the problem. Because you're probably the wrong. And you just don't want to hear it. Okay? As of today, Donald Trump, the Candy-in-Chief, has fired the Navy Chief of Staff, United States Navy Chief of Staff, the United States Air Force Chief of Staff, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, in charge of all the branches, the Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, the number 2 in the Air Force, head of the Navy SEALs group. I shouldn't have to say more than that. Not good. Top of the Global Strike Command, Naval Operations Chief. He's fired the top legal officer of the Air Force, and I'm going to pin here for a second. He's fired the top legal officer of the United States Air Force, the top legal officer of the United States Army, and the top legal officer of the United States Navy. Consider that on its face and on its own. 3 of the top law enforcement components in each of those 3 branches, the biggest, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. The Marine Corps smaller, no less important, but they didn't, at least not yet anyway. All of those legal components, those legal experts, the best of the best, people that have given a lifetime's worth of service and expertise and training and knowledge and intelligence. They're gone. And I'll leave you with the question as I posed last week. I said, question everything. Pose questions and you'll find answers. Even if they're not blatantly in front of you, just keep asking questions. It's Socratic. It's Socratic method. Just keep asking questions. You'll bother the hell of a lot of people, but it'll force answers too. And it'll lead to more questions, which makes you smarter. All right? Making you smarter. The top legal officer of the Air Force, top legal officer of the United States Navy, and the top legal officer of the United States Army. The people that can define and blow the whistle on illegality in our nation's military have been removed and fired. Not a coincidence. And if you're not asking that question, it's because you don't want to. Because you know the answer and you don't want to face it. You want to ignore it and go post about something else so you can take the shiny ball and make somebody else follow that, while the real critical items are here. So those three top legal officers of the three largest branches have been fired, and they're gone. No watchdog. Do whatever the hell you want. In addition, head of U.S. Cyber Command, fired. Head of Defense Intelligence, fired. Top legal officer of the CIA. Well, however you feel about the CIA, I don't give a damn. The point is, top law component in the CIA, fired. And for good measure, the Coast Guard Commandant. Real quick, for those of you that don't know, most of you do, the United States military consists of 5 branches. Most know 2 or 3, maybe the 4, not always the 5. Have to say it just because. United States Army, United States Navy, United States Air Force, United States Marine Corps, and the United States Coast Guard. Those 5 branches comprise our United States military servicemen and women. Okay? And so the United States Coast Guard Commandant, the Commandant is the highest ranked position in our United States Coast Guard, also gone. All of those people are gone. Now, if one of those persons is fired or removed or moves on to retire because we get a new president, that happens a lot, by the way. Okay, and I don't mean a lot in whole, but I mean a lot in terms of our presidencies. Every time a new president comes in, you might get a new commandant of the Coast Guard, maybe you definitely get like a new Joint Chiefs of Staff head who's in charge of all 5 branches. You might get a new Secretary of Defense. That usually happens with the turnover. And then sometimes you might change the head of the United States, the highest ranking general of the United States military that runs the United States Army, the commander of the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, etc. Right? That does happen. But I'm putting this on your plate in conjunction with the stuff that's going on with the boat strikes and our lack of intelligence and understanding what's going on there. Trump has wiped out, decimated, eradicated a group of people, and not an exaggeration, a fact, in my lifetime, a group of people that I have never seen moved out in total in the history of this country, at least as far back as I can remember and as far back as I am alive. You move out that kind of expertise, training, service, knowledge, experience, you can move out maybe one person and they're replaced by someone. You move out that many, dozen plus, all within the first year, that's a hit. That is a staggering blow to the professionalism, competence, experience, and expertise of the highest ranking members of our military in this country. Period. And it's not even close. We've never done that. No president has ever done that. And I'm going to tell you why. Not every president, we almost never get them anymore, by the way. I would love for once maybe to get a commander-in-chief that actually served or wore the uniform. That doesn't happen anymore. So I live with it. The last time I tried that I actively did something, and this is on record, I served as the director for the Every Vote Counts campaign for John Kerry, a Vietnam vet that I had respect for, and I helped and drove his campaign in Central California. So we don't get veterans anymore to run. Rare, if ever. But the civilian personnel, the civilian people that we have had serve as the President of the United States, of these United States, almost to a man, no women yet, and if we keep going this route, we might never get one anytime soon, because we all know men can't vote for a female. At least most of you. A lot of you. At no time in our history have we had a president that was a civilian person that had not served come in and do this kind of damage. You want to know why? Because they have the good goddamn sense not to screw around things what they do not understand. Not to do damage to a force and a service that is acknowledged and recognized as the most efficient, the most powerful, effective force, military, that the world has ever seen. You ever heard the term, if it ain't broke? Exactly. Our military is not broke. There is not a lot wrong with it. Are there some corrections? Are there some things? Yeah, always. That's any military, any organization, any group. But to say that the men and women in uniform today are not what they should be or not the best on the planet is a grave disservice, a disingenuousness, a dishonestness, a weakness on the part of the people doing the damage. And yes, I'll say it real clearly for those of you that don't want to hear it. It's a fact. Trump is doing this. It isn't just Hegseth. He put that fool there. The most blatantly unqualified person. Again, at least in my lifetime, at least. He's going to go down, and you can quote me on this in history books. Pete Hegseth will go down as the, if not one of, the worst secretaries of defense in the history of this country, in the nearly 250 years we've been in existence. He's going to be that. He will be written about as that. And if I don't see that being written in another 5-10 years, I might write the damn thing myself. It will be written. He is that bad. All that under the watch of Bone Spurs in Chief, the guy who has systematically eradicated the greatest collection of expertise and experience in upper command that our country has ever seen. And the turnover, all of it within 1 year. Bottom line, and I'll move on here, bottom line is he has weakened this country. He has made us vulnerable because he has diminished the quality of our upper leadership, the top brass. Does that mean that the ones replacing them are not good? No, absolutely not. We have a deep bench, but to stay with that analogy a little bit further, and I'll leave it here. If you want to win a World Series, are you going to put 9 rookies on the field? Yeah. Wake up, America. Wake up, Mexican America. Any America. Consider that. You want to win a World Series title? Let me call Andrew Friedman with the Los Angeles Dodgers. United States Dodgers, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and tell him, hey Andrew, I know you guys just won 2 World Series titles in a row. Why don't you replace them all with rookies next year and win it again? You see how that works? Now, I'm being tongue-in-cheek and facetious, but damn it, it's serious. We are vulnerable. We have been debilitated. We have been degraded. And I will expect the people that have replaced the others will do as good a job as they possibly can. But when you remove that much experience, that much expertise, that much knowledge, that much combat expertise, you leave us vulnerable. No president has ever done that, ever, in the history of this country to the same degree. Never. But nothing to see here, right? It's all good? No, it's not. Some of us see it. Some of us calling out. Some of us are calling it out. That is what this show is. I will call it out. And again, speaking directly because it does affect me personally. I am prior service. I care about my country and I care about our military in particular. And I've said before, and I'll move on from here to the next topic. There are 2 things in particular. 2 things in particular that if you remove one or both of them, this country's done. All right? There are a lot of things that we're really good at. Silicon Valley, technology, We've got a lot of things that we're really excellent at. Above board, that are global, okay? In outlook and approach and in appreciation from the rest of the world. But these 2 things in particular, the United States economy and the United States military. When you begin to damage those, you begin to damage the underpinnings on which this country rests. You begin to damage who we are as a people. I'll go a step further. Before we had the world's greatest economy, it was on the backs and the bullets of our nation's military that our economy grew to be the number one global and globe-spanning economy that no one else and no other country, no other people can match. Real quick history lesson to bring you back. Prior to World War II, we had already served and helped in World War I. But after World War II, after we closed the deal on the Nazis, a fascist regime, Italy, Japan, after we closed the deal and we whooped that ass and we won World War II, the relationships that we built with European countries and Europe as a whole, the Western side of Europe, Western civilization, Western society in general, those relationships led to partnerings, contracts, markets that grew our economy to the greatest economy on the planet today. Today. And that is on the back of and the bullets of the United States military. If we had not done that, I'm not saying we couldn't be number one as an economy, but I definitely know that we couldn't be the same, because those partnerships with those countries that we saved, that we rescued, that we fought for, who returned favor and did business with us and partnered with us and built markets with us. So now that we're globe spanning, that was on the back of the United States military. You start screwing with our military, this whole thing can go up in smoke and be gone. Because as of right now, to finish and to move on, we are weaker in leadership at the top level in our nation's military than we ever have been. Are we still strong? Yes. But we're weaker. And if I'm another country, if I'm another group, I might do some poking. I might fiddle around and see what I can get away with. Maybe take a shot. Who knows what that shot means? Doesn't mean like a missile's going to hit us tomorrow. But I'm poking at the edges. I'm trying to find out what I can get away with, because the United States isn't quite what it used to be even a year ago. You have a lot of new people in place. I'll leave you with that analogy. You want to win a World Series? You don't put 9 rookies on the damn field. Maybe you put in Andy Pajes in center field and he's new, and over the last year or two and he develops. You have a lot of veterans, and then you bring in some new guys to influx for speed, for energy, for hustle. But you don't replace the whole damn show, because the turnaround and the cost would be too much. Consider that, and we may revisit it next week, but those are all facts. Those are all true. Everything I've said is a fact. Your call on how you want to internalize and dissect what I've told you and what that means to you. That's your choice. At least in my world, in my mind, this is a free country. Even if they don't deport me tomorrow, who knows? I might get jacked by ICE too. I am dark. I'm a Mexican-looking dude, like dark Mexican. All right? So consider that. We are weaker than we've ever been. Our nation's top leadership is weaker than it's ever been. All because one person who's a draft dodger, in essence, and who doesn't have the spine to listen to his betters, to listen to people who have done the job, who have served their country, who've given their lives to this country. He doesn't want to listen to them because he knows they're smarter than he is. He knows they're tougher than he is. He knows they have bigger you-know-whats than him. All the above. And we have to sit and watch. Moving on. Number 2. We'll finish here and be done pretty quick. As I kind of posed this last week, and this is specifically for Mexicans in America, but I'm going to give a quick shout out / acknowledgement. I did notice after last week, and my fault for not doing a better job of announcing or letting people know that I was going to be back on air. I just kind of did it. But there are some people that came back and watched that show, literally, that have been around with me through my long layoff, about 4 or 5 years, going back 6, 7, 8 years. And I want to say thank you to those people. They are left over with me from a time when I was on conservative talk radio. You're wondering, like, wait a minute, you don't sound like a conservative. I am conservative, depending on the issue. Let me make sure I'm clear about that. Depending on the damn issue. I'm more conservative than the people saying they're conservative. Don't waste taxpayer dollars. Don't spend money that you don't have. That's not yours. You're blowing people's money. Don't weaken our military. I can go on and on. I'm conservative. They're not. Okay, so I'm conservative and I'm liberal. Because I choose not to be pigeonholed by anybody to tell me I'm one or the other. I get to choose what I want to be. All right? So I was on conservative talk radio and I would talk about these issues. And so some people stayed around, and I know they don't vote the same way that I do all the time, and that's okay, but they keep coming back, and some of them have revisited me after many years because they remember who I was, not just my issues or positions. They know fundamentally at core, I'm probably just like them, even if I don't look exactly like them and we don't live in the same area. Fundamentally, I'm American, and I believe in the American process and principle. So I won't shout out the names. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back into my feed after tonight. I'm going to go back and look at all the comments and respond to you and interact with you that way, because before we start getting bigger again, I can still do that when the numbers are still beginning to grow. We're just starting up again. But I want to share that appreciation for all of you that are here tonight or watching now that have been with me in the past and you're coming back. And for any of you that are new, I welcome you. You're going to get something entirely different than what you're used to getting, if anything, just in appearance or background, but also in the method and the methodology with which I approach the things that I do. Okay? Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming back. You cannot know, it did make me smile, and I don't smile very often, but I was really, really appreciative to see some old faces and names pop up on the feeds on both YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so real quick, last point. Mexican-American, Mexican cultural uniformity and disunity. And it's not one or the other. It's not uniformly just 100% together, 0% not together. It isn't that. We're on a continuum. And it's a sliding scale depending on the time, the place, etc. Right? But I will say this. At no time in this nation's history, our nation's history, the United States, at no time historically, can we honestly say that the Mexican people in America, Mexican Americans, have been uniformly aligned culturally, socially, and politically? Okay? And for the record, I'm not saying they have to be politically aligned. I'm okay with Mexicans that are liberals, Mexicans that are conservatives, Mexicans that are Green Party, Mexicans that are whatever. You know, that's cool. That's what this country's all about, right? But we do have to have some commonalities. We do have to have some shared things that bind us and that in some cases regulate us in our behavior and who we are. You get it? I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's cool that there are Mexicans in America right now that are turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to Mexicans in America, legal and illegal, getting beaten down in the streets like animals and shipped across the border. Legally and illegally, both. And you turn a blind eye and defend ICE because politically that's your tribe. And I'm offering to you, those of you that would do that, ain't I more your tribe? Huh? Ain't I more your tribe than the 6'1" white guy beating the hell out of you behind a mask? Or better yet, not you, but that Mexican mom who's single, and maybe she came over illegally, and she's just been hustling, working at a restaurant. She gets pulled out of the restaurant and thrown across the border without her kids. Yeah, you can make the argument she's illegal, she should go. But where's the humanity component to you? Let me guess. Some of you just got here overnight. Your grandparents didn't cross the border illegally. And I'm saying that because I have relations and relatives in this country that were here prior to the existence of this country. And I have relations and relatives, grandparents, that came across the border illegally and legally, both. Now, I'm not saying that is right or wrong. What I'm saying is today, for me, to uniformly attack my grandparents or great-grandparents and tell people that came over yesterday that, oh, no, no, you're illegal. You got to go back. That is the height of hypocrisy. I'll go beyond just the hypocrisy word, because hypocrisy doesn't mean anything anymore to anybody. People don't give a damn if you call them a hypocrite. I'll just say you're weak. You're intellectually, socially, culturally, ethically weak. If you can look me in the eye and tell me that person needs to go back across the border because they walked over the border illegally, yet you're here because your parents or grandparents did the same damn thing. How about that? You're weak. Sorry. Defend your position, but yeah, just hide it. You'll do the usual Trump nut thing and go talk about something else because you don't want to talk about the facts. That right now is a polarizing and a disuniting item and issue right now. What I'm saying is we can be uniform and together in calling that out as wrong. Okay, and I'm going to add one little kernel, and I'm going to finish up here pretty quick because I don't want to go, like I said, I want to keep it to a certain amount of time. But what is wrong is this. A good portion, a good chunk of people that are Mexicans in America, there's a good percentage of them that, again, were here prior or were here legally, etc. Some were here before this was the United States. Some were here when this was, there are people that have ancestry going back to when this place, meaning the Pacific Southwest in particular, by the way, giving you a geography lesson, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Pacific Southwest. And we're here when this was New Mexico, like Nuevo Mexico. It was all part of Mexico, all right? And then we came in, jacked them. I say United States. We came in, jacked them, took that portion because we wanted more land, because that's what it was. We really picked a fight with Mexico, beat them up, and took their land. Sound familiar, though? It should. Okay, so before it was a New Mexico, Nuevo Mexico, it was a New Spain. And then Mexico fought. And that time, there were people here. During the time this was New Spain, during the time this was a New Mexico, during the time this was a new United States, and even prior to that. And what does that mean? And where am I finishing? What I'm going to tell you is this, Mexicans in America, is that there is very little genetic difference in makeup, difference in appearance. There's very little difference. And the people that lived, grew, and thrived, and survived, and developed a civilization in what is today, geographically, all, imagined boundaries and lines, what is today the Pacific Southwest. The Apache, Navajo, other tribes along the border that we know now are very, very little different than the tribes of Mexicans in the northern portions of Chihuahua and the deserts of the Sonora. It's the same people, ladies and gentlemen, genetically. Just divided by an imaginary line that some people created and said, you're this and now I'm that. They're the same people, genetically, okay? And my point ultimately is this. Mexicans in America, we're native. Remember that. Remind yourself that. So when you see Native Americans, the title, and you see a Native American Indian, again, another title given to them, not their own, you need to consider that you're that too. You're the same damn thing. Now, I actually do have ancestry that would be considered like tribal, Navajo, maybe some Hopi, some I got to do more research, but on definitely on my grandmother's side, on my my paternal grandmother's side, definitely tribal. So I consider myself native to a degree. I identify as Mexican American. I do identify Indian too. Small percentage, not all of it, but I'm part that too. Okay? So that's my last point to you. This is a unifying point. I'm giving you something, Mexican America, that unifies all of us. Okay? You can find the disunity all you damn want. It's easy. It's there. You don't want to help your cousin because he's pendejo, or he doesn't speak good enough Spanish, or maybe he speaks too pocho, whatever the hell you want to find as a disunifier, a disuniter. Tonight, before we walk off now, before we finish this show, I'm going to give you something unifying. Clear? Again, factual, predicated on what has gone in our past and what we have as ancestry. Mexicans in America are native to this land. native to this land. What does that mean? You should be down and 100% supportive and helping with the Native American populace of the United States as a whole. Because you're the same damn people. You just got mixed up with the border. You got mixed up with some lines that were drawn for you and some names given to you. That's my show for tonight. I thank you all for being here. Again, 2 items, all factual, all crisp, all lucid, all intelligent presented to you, but stuff that you can walk away with knowing and learning a little bit better than what you did prior. Don't forget those things. We'll be back on air Thursday. I'll do a better job of putting it out a little bit, but again, roughly the same time, Tuesdays and Thursdays from now going forward at roughly about 6:30 for about 30 to 45, maybe a little bit more. It's about what we're going to table out at tonight. Happy to be back on. Again, thank you to those who are returning, starting to give it. I never did this before. I'm going to do it now. If you're returning to me, start sharing and liking and subscribing, doing all that hoorah, because we do need to increase this. There are very few quality, intellectually gifted and capable in language and other Mexican Americans that are putting out content, political, social, and cultural, because they're afraid to, or they just don't want to, or they can't. I'm doing that here. So you want to be Mexican? Help a brother out and help us grow. How about that? Or don't. But I have a feeling, a sneaking suspicion, pretty confident, I'm going to get more as we grow and as we go forward, because I'm providing you with, again, facts, information, and talking points, argumenting points that are factual and that cannot be disputed because they're on their face, obvious and true. Okay? Again, Tuesday, Thursday, 6:30. We'll be back, SuperMex Nation. Number love for you.